That ache that you feel, that longing that you feel, that pain that you feel, that unconsolable pain that you feel deep down that's always there and never goes away. And even in happy moments of happy distraction, if you were to tap in and stop being distracted, would know it's still there. That one. That is the dormant but still alive inner child within you that you still have in a prison. It's like just laying there, beaten, wounded, and abandoned. And the pain that you feel is it being in a cage and still being abandoned by you and having lost the battle against all of its oppressors, and to the point where you became its oppressor and kept it in the cage. And that pain that you feel is the fact that it is still alive inside of a cage inside of you. Because earlier in life, it wasn't so dormant, and it was still nagging at you, trying to get you to do what it wanted to do. Back then, it still had hope. It still had hope going, as soon as we get out of school, we can be free. And then lo and behold, you come down and go, I know we've been fighting for a long time for this and waiting a long time for this freedom moment. I'm sorry to break it to you, little buddy, but we're going to go the way that you had hoped we wouldn't. We're going to continue suppressing us. We're going the way of the adult, the way you had never hoped would happen to us. We're deciding it's easier to keep you in a cage than liberate you and let your inspirations guide us. And so that pain that you spent every moment of your free time, and even not your free brain wandering time, trying to avoid all of the distractions that you do in your free time to avoid that pain, that feeling of, even though it's okay right in this moment because I'm having a fun time doing XYZ in my free time, if I stopped for a moment, and if that stopped for a moment and I had a moment to actually think, I would know that in this moment, this distraction is fun, but it is exactly that, a distraction from the inner unhappiness. That unhappiness that I spend all of my free time trying to avoid. And that unhappiness is the wound, the weeping wound of your long dormant inner child that you have left abandoned in some cage inside of you. The one that had hoped that at the end of all of this bullshit that it knew was bullshit of going to school and that, the one that would say one day when I am an adult and I am free, I will do whatever I want to do. That one, that pain, is that little guy that you have in a cage somewhere that doesn't want to be in that cage and is just dormant, lying there dormant like a dormant volcano because it has no other choice but that continuous weeping wound that is the pain that you feel is its hope to one day be let out. Hope that's spoiled into a seeping wound of truth that it will never be let out until you decide you want to change. And it knows that that may never happen. So anyways, that wound is self-abandonment. And then you can choose to heal that self-abandonment by embodying what that little you wants to be and wants to do. And the other problem is maybe you don't remember what that little you wants to do. But if you let it out of the cage or let it speak again, talk to it, it'll tell you what it wants. And if you fail to want to imagine talking to your little self, you can look for the theme in your life. Look for the biggest pain in your life, and that's going to be your cue to what it wants to do. It's going to be the opposite of that. For instance, mine, when I finally chose to actually look, is blatantly evident. The themes are of freedom, sovereignty, autonomy, and therefore that led to a lot of isolation. Because if that is who you are and what you want to do and express in this life, well, everyone around you that wants you to conform is going to be trying to beat that out of you. And therefore, you're going to be feeling very alone. Until one day you realize that you are never alone. You never were alone. Because you realize that God raised you. And not only did you realize that God raised you, you realize that He also didn't stop there. He also continued to guide you and guide you into lessons, showing you, keeping you on your path. He's saying, not only am I going to raise this one and not let anybody else raise them, I am not going to let anybody else teach this apprentice of mine how to do this job that we've decided that they will do. Which brings me into the second half of my mission, which is surrender. Surrender to that blueprint and trust in God and self-trust and knowing that they're one of the same. So just surrender into the flow of creation and let the blueprint of the flower that is your life unfold. For instance, it has become evident that He has been teaching me how to be a good leader. I have been His student, and how to be a teacher, how to be a leader, how to be a visionary, how to be an example, how to be a master alchemist. He has been teaching me all of this. And He has guided me away from anyone that wanted to continue to try to oppress and influence His teaching, which is of that you find the way for yourself. That is co-creation. That is surrender. That is trusting in yourself and trusting in yourself and your connection to divine source and the fact that you are it and it is you, and therefore you step into the flow of surrender into the flow of creation. Stop fighting against the blueprint that you guys both drew up together. The blueprint of your life. The blueprint that would blossom into your mission and your legacy and what you are doing here on Earth. Because, again, back to the example, there have been people that when I have gotten close to any sort of leadership position that have infringed on me in a way which is only natural, but anyway, in a way, I'm just showing you my lesson, and how God has been in charge of it the whole time, these people have infringed on what I would believe to be a way of leadership and how I would lead and how I would manage something. And God was like, you bet your butt you don't have to do it the way that they think is a correct way to be a leader. You can be a leader. A true leader leads by example. A true leader empowers those that wish to be led. He doesn't squish them through some mold of what he thinks makes a good leader or good worker or fulfiller. That's what I mean. Though it was a big pain source in my life, this source of isolation in search of my own inner truth and becoming the most empowered and embodied and self-assured and self-confident version of myself, to then become a leader and a teacher. And he said, and I'm not going to let anybody else teach you how to do this job. This is a job we discussed you would do. I'm not going to let anybody else teach you how to do it. I'm going to fucking teach you how to do it. From a place of unconditional love, support, guidance, and protection. And then you connect that to how he did that for you and me, you, we, me. I got that from Steph. What's from my scribe with Steph on YouTube. Fucking genius way of making that clear. You realize that force, that source of creation, has always been doing that for you. Has been a source of unconditional love, guidance, protection, and support. Once you realize that, you do really realize that, it's so easy to surrender into it. You're like, dog, this guy's my ride or die bitch, and he's had me the whole time. I've had him, and fucking I'm gonna put my fucking feet and arms up and relax inside this tube in the flow of creation. And fucking enjoy the ride. Right? That's why that's such a good analogy, because if you're fighting the flow of the river, you're like fucking scrambling and grabbing onto sticks and shit and like wondering why this is such a hard fucking time instead of fucking surrendering into the flow of what you were meant to do. And feeling the ease and flow of that. You're like thrashing around, you're like, how do I control this fucking ride? How do I control this river? How do I find my way in this flow? Instead of just fucking enjoying the ride and knowing that the source of what makes it all flow has got you and is going to continue flowing you into the direction that you have planned. The direction of the highest good for all. Walking home to the remembrance of who and what you are. And once you do that, walking each other home. That's whatever we're doing continuously the whole time before you even know it. Is walking each other home to that remembrance. Walking each other home to the truth of you don't have to be in that matrix. You can tell the matrix, which is just an algorithm, what you want it to reflect to you. And then enjoy that ride. Instead of whatever you got going on now from somebody else's programming, somebody else's narrative. Okay, so that's it. Stop perpetuating the cycle of self-abandonment that you were raised with and that you continue to now be your own abuser for. Let that little fucking bugger out of his cage. Ask him to remind you what you wanted to do. And you're going to have to build its trust. Like, you lock a child in a cage and then one day let him out and go, okay, everything's going to be okay now, okay, buddy? And watch him believe you. if you have anger towards your parents for the way that they raised you and what they've done to oppress and suppress that little inner child of yours, guess what, buddy? You've been doing the same thing. So you're just using them as a scapegoat not to take responsibility for what you have done to it. It's not your fault that happened to you. It's your responsibility to then reparent your inner child and go, I know I've become what we hated the most, but I'm ready to not be that anymore, and I'm ready to be what I should have been for you all those years ago when I was the one that became the warden instead of setting you free like we had planned. And that is taking the power back. That is no longer being a victim to whatever fear-based paradigm and programming and conditioning and oppression and suppression that has been instilled onto you. Transmuting that energy, taking the power back and realizing it wasn't my fault then, but it is my responsibility to stop doing it to myself now. That's what reparenting is. That's what transmuting that dark energy is. Transmuting self-abandonment into self-confidence, self-assuredness, and integrating that inner child into who you are and putting him in his place where he was meant to be, which is an inner joy guide of where you and your soul want to be, because that is your innocence there. That is your most innocent, raw form of yourself and what you wanted to be when you came in here, who maybe didn't understand the path or where we were going to go or how it was going to take us there, but is that source, that guiding light, that beacon of inspiration that guides us towards where we are meant to go. Because that is your purest source of connection to the purity of what you once were when you first came in. So that is why it is a little beacon in your heart telling you where you wanted to go from the beginning. Put him in his place and be the parent that he needed, that they needed, which was to say, I trust you, I trust your connection to source, I trust where you want to go, I trust your authentic expression. Tell me how I can support you. You are coming, big mama, big daddy, to the you that you abandoned. It's setting yourself up the way you wish you had been set up. Reparenting, reprogramming. So then you can stop saying, I wish I was brought up this way, and I wonder what would have happened if I was brought up this way, and fucking bring yourself up that way and watch it unfold. And know that God's source creation is there guiding you, supporting you, protecting you, and unconditionally loving you and providing those things unconditionally all the way. And then become the change you want to see in the world. And let that little guy be a beacon of what that is and how to get there by following that beacon.